Please introduce yourself to our home audience.
Hi, my name is Will Warihay. I am a current director on the American Mock Trial Association Board. I'm the current Tournament Administration Committee Chair, and I coach Georgia Tech's mock trial team.
You said you chair the Tournament Administration Committee. What is TAC?
TAC is a set of 3 subcommittees that I'm in charge of that are responsible for organizing and planning all of AMTA's tournaments. So we start from picking the sites with a site selection committee. We assign AMTA representatives to each tournament, and we help coordinate each tournament that's held.
Let's focus on the last of those, the coordination of tournaments. I want to focus in particular on what things look like for the host. Who hosts AMTA tournaments?
Anyone can host an AMTA tournament. We advertise on our website for anyone to submit, so that could be a law school that's looking to host a tournament, it could be a current program, current school, or really any organization can host an AMTA tournament as long as you can provide facilities and judges and you're in an area of the country where we need a tournament.
In which areas of the country is AMTA usually looking for hosts?
We're always looking for hosts all around the country. We've had a lot of hosts that have been very generous with their time and have hosted AMTA tournaments for years. And at this point, some of those tournament hosts are, kind of fatigued or experiencing judge fatigue. So we're always looking for new hosts to take over tournaments in areas of the country, and any area of the country that AMTA teams are located. Because the more tournaments we have, the easier it is for us to assign teams to tournaments that are geographically desirable for all of our schools.
Say a team is thinking about hosting. Do they need to be one of the most successful teams in the United States competitively in order to be chosen as an AMTA host?
Absolutely not. How good or bad you are at mock trial has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not we would pick you as a host for a tournament. What we look for in a tournament host is someone who can provide adequate facilities for the tournament, can recruit judges, and is generally reliable and organized to make sure that the event is something that AMTA is wanting to put their name on.
You mentioned a few host responsibilities. Let's dig a little deeper. When you said facilities, what kind of facilities are you looking for?
Ideally, we would like all of our hosts to have courthouses, but we know that courthouses are often hard to obtain. They can be expensive. So what we really look for is rooms that are suitable for mock trials. These should generally be, they can be classrooms as long as you can put tables in the classrooms, provide chairs. Nobody likes competing in a mock trial where they're sitting at student desks or sitting in the auditorium style seating. So we would ideally like open rooms that can be organized into good trial rooms.
How many rooms does a host need to have in order for them to host an AMTA tournament?
At a minimum, we want our hosts to host at least 24 teams. Ideally, if you could take 26, 28, or 30, that would be great. But if you host 24 teams, you need at least 12 trial rooms. And ideally, you would have a separate room for your judge registration and judge orientation, another room for your captain's meeting, and a third room for tab room. So in theory, for a 24-team tournament, you need at least 15 different rooms.
You also mentioned judges. Who judges at these AMTA tournaments?
At AMTA tournaments, the host is responsible for recruiting the judges, and we ideally, again, would like you to recruit attorneys from your local bar association to come judge mock trial. Law students are perfectly acceptable. AMTA has a rubric that we provide to our hosts and to our AMTA reps to rank the judges that volunteer to make sure that if we only have 12 attorneys, say, for any given round, that each one of our trials gets one of those attorneys, and that all 12 attorneys aren't put in just 6 rooms.
So you said the host is responsible for obtaining the judges for a tournament. How does the host do that?
We recommend that hosts reach out to their local bar associations, to every law firm that they can get a hold of, and down to cold calling law firms. If you can get a bar association to give you access or send an email on your behalf to their distribution list, that's obviously ideal. If you have local law schools, contacting them to send out emails for you. If your state bar allows you to get CLE credit or continuing legal education credit for judging mock trial, that's a great way to get attorneys to come out and judge, because all attorneys need CLE every single year.
In addition to getting the judges to come out to the tournament, what other supplies or resources do you need to provide once the judges get there?
We want our hosts to provide meals or refreshments that are adequate for the time of day. So what that means is in the morning you should have some coffee and some Danish and things like that for your judges. You should try to provide lunch for them, or at least provide options for them to go get lunch in the middle of the day. And that's really all you need to prepare for the judges.
Now, you mentioned the judges and the facilities. What else does a host need to provide?
Besides the judges and the facilities, a host should provide a staff to help kind of run the event, check in the judges when they get there, check in the teams when they get there. But other than that, AMTA provides AMTA representatives. 2 people go to each tournament from AMTA, and they'll be the ones that run the judge orientation, the captain's meeting, and do all the pairing. There are 2 independent people. They do not have a team in that tournament, and that's what they're there for, is to make sure that all the rules are followed and the tournament is run smoothly. Otherwise, the host is there to make sure logistically the tournament keeps running.
So you mentioned that AMTA provides the reps to run the tournament and make sure that the competitive aspects of the tournament are well taken care of. What other resources does AMTA provide to its tournament hosts?
In a lot of ways, running an AMTA tournament is easier than running an invitational tournament, because we provide you with ballots, tab cards, trophies, and people to run your tab room. We also provide a stipend to each host, and we provide, new this year, each host will have their school registration fee waived at the outset of the season. So that's $450 that every AMTA host gets right off the bat that they don't have to pay at the beginning of the year.
Wow, it sounds like you're telling us that if you host an AMTA tournament, you're going to get money.
Correct.
You're going to get a waiver of your registration fee.
Correct.
You're going to get all the supplies you need for the ballots and the tab cards and the trophies.
That's exactly right.
And you're going to get reps coming to you to help run the competitive side of your tournament?
And that's what I mean. When the only things you have to worry about are getting us facilities and getting us judges.
Can we quote you on this?
It's a fact. Check the rule book.
Now, you mentioned a comparison to invitational tournaments. Can you explain the difference between an invitational tournament and an official AMTA tournament?
An invitational tournament is not a part of AMTA. AMTA does not sponsor or hold any invitational tournaments. Those are individually held by any school that wants to host one. The only thing that AMTA does is we provide on our website an area for invitational hosts to advertise their tournament, but we have no affiliation with any of those tournaments and don't generally support them in any way. They also don't have any bearing on our competitive structure. So when you get to regionals in February, those are the AMTA tournaments. They're the tournaments that we hold, and they're the tournaments that matter in terms of people moving on to ORCS in the national championship.
Now, if a team hosts an invitational tournament, does that disqualify them from also hosting an AMTA tournament later on in the season?
Absolutely not. We would probably have a few more questions just to make sure that they would have the ability to recruit judges 2 times in a year. But that is really our only concern when it comes to you hosting a team hosting 2 tournaments. We have plenty of hosts right now every single year that host invitationals and host AMTA tournaments later in the year.
Are there other benefits to hosting an AMTA tournament related to schedule or choices that the team gets to make, or even where it sends its teams?
So as an AMTA host, when you submit your proposal, you get to pick which weekend you want to host your tournament. AMTA may ask you for some flexibility on that, because we do try to make sure that tournaments geographically are separated throughout the month of February or March, depending on what you're holding. But in general, we let our hosts pick which weekend they want to host, which allows you as a host to pick which weekend you're going to compete in February or March. So while some teams have to wait until November to find out their regional assignments, you could know in June when you submit your application to host a tournament. We also ask our hosts for their preference on whether or not they want their A and their B or their C and their D team to compete at any given tournament. We ask for that way in advance, and then we take that into account when we're assigning teams later in the process, so that we can still make sure all the tournaments are even and that our hosts don't get any competitive advantage from that. But it allows us to make sure that our hosts have the right people that can run the tournament versus compete in the tournament. For example, we have a lot of schools that are student-run that also host AMTA tournaments. And so generally the people who run the tournaments are the more senior members, probably the members on the A or the B team. And so then in those cases, we don't assign those schools A or B teams to the tournament that they're hosting, so that those students can also run the tournament.
Now, sources tell me that you will be hosting an AMTA tournament for the first time in your career in 2016. What have you learned in working with hosts that you hope to implement as a successful host yourself?
my goal is to make, as a host of any tournament, is to make sure that it's as smooth as possible for the teams attending. So I look to make sure that the location is central to a hotel and central to all logistical things that are happening in the tournament, so teams don't have to be driving all the way across the city to get to or from an opening or closing ceremony. I want to make it as easy as possible for everyone that's coming in to attend the event, and as low stress as possible, even though it is a competitive mock trial tournament.
Last question, I think it's the question on everybody's mind. When will we have the first AMTA tournament in Hawaii?
As soon as we get a host out there, I will absolutely go, and I will be your AMTA rep out there.
Thanks so much, Mr. Warihay.